waist out, pull your waist back, push your waist out, now pull your waist back, push your waist out, pull your waist back, push your waist out, pull it back, jump and spread out, jump and spread out, jump and spread out, stop, yeah, jump and spread out, jump and spread out, jump and spread out, stop. If your ass is bigger than your waist and you got a cute face, you got a sexy body. Let's go. You got a Coca-Cola shape and you got a cute face. If you do, you got a sexy body. Come on, come on. If your ass is bigger than your waist and you got a cute face, you got a sexy body. Wait, you got a Coca-Cola shape and you got a cute face. If you do, you got a sexy body. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah.
Niftily, we can make it hip to be. What with our cause, what with be. Be the epitome, do, da, dippity. So now I dwell just to say it plainer. Hold your cup, cause I got the
D Nice. What's up, TD? Keep rocking. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. Later.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. In the night. Who in the night? Out. Who in the night?
We rocking tonight. What's your boy, Uncle Lazy? We having a party.
Stop playing. Keep it moving.
A little later today. We're gonna party a little bit.
Stop playing. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. Sing along. Hey.
We're gonna party tonight. This is what we're gonna do.
Hey.
New York style. Shake what your mama gave ya. Shake what your mama gave ya.
Let's go, y'all. Come on.
Shake what your mama
We're about to start it. I'm gonna set the.
Shake what your
You know what? Let me put this song right here. I just want to get my energy up right here.
Shake what your mama gave
Let's go.
Shake what your mama
7:30 work. Come on, y'all.
Shake what your mama gave ya.
Feel free to move. Come on, let's go. I can be nice. Moving in our feet too. Let's go. Everybody's here. Let's go. Who's partying? I'm not even gonna do the long intro. That was just for it.
Hey Dad, it's Dahlia. Congratulations on your new show. I know how you get, so don't be too rough on her. Love you and good luck. Bye.
Love you too, Monkey. Welcome to The Raw Perspective with your host, the incomparable Uncle Lays, a.k.a. Lays Elliott, a.k.a. Lazy Lays from the world famous, kicking it with you in topics about health, politics, music, art, culture, and now, for your host, the legendary Uncle Lays.
Hey, yo. What's up, y'all? It's your boy.
Hey, yo, Lays is rock.
Oh, what's
yo,
up, bro?
get in there and tell the people what it is, man. Let them know what this thing is all about.
Oh, come on, man.
Give them the information.
That's what we do. We let you know what this thing is
Oh,
all
what a
about.
day. That's what we do. We get
The
information. This your boy Blaze in the Raw Perspective. This is the Friday edition. We late today. We going at 7:30. We flying in, partying on Friday evening. Come on now, let's go, y'all. I got the crew. Everybody's here on time. That's telling me something. We might need to stay late. We might have to do this on,
Hey.
we got lucky, because the stars aligned properly. The stars aligned. So we were able to get everybody in at 7:30. Oh my goodness. Oh, what a night. Well, let me tell you something. What a day. I had a day. I had a whole thing. Shout out to my sister Simone A. Nicholas. Shout out to my OSG family. If you don't know, I was just on the Lions Den every third Friday of the month. We do the Lions Den, and it was amazing. Dr. Monica George was on, and she slayed it. I mean, she was just amazing, and she's so street, and she's so real with hers. It was amazing, man. Shout out to my OSG family. Shout out to my MOP First family. Easy Breezy McKeezy. I see you, Sakina Pitts. I see you. Oh. Y'all got to excuse me. I'm a little hopped up today. Y'all got to excuse me. This is the Raw Perspective Friday edition. I got my crew in the building.
Right.
I got my sister. She's here right now. Oh, PD.
Hey.
Host of Fresh Start Focus. Saturday at 10 o'clock. Oh, my goodness. My sister from Yadi. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the great Tanya Hazelhurst Dawkins, a.k.a. TD Loving. Let's go, TD. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing awesome tonight.
Yeah.
I
Your
like
brother was
7:30.
Milwaukee today. Milwaukee like a Jamaican man today. We have too many shows today. Milwaukee like a Jamaican man. You know, 2 jobs, 3 jobs. We had many jobs today. Also,
Every day.
yeah. What's up, T? What's going on with you, man? What you doing, man?
Man, I'm just, plotting out my year, getting my shows in order.
Nice.
Working on some of the projects future projects you and I,
Yep.
I've been talking about, and really just trying to continue to spread the message of health and wellness to everyone.
Absolutely.
And especially mental health. A lot of times mental health really gets affected during the winter months.
Somebody cover these birds for the love of God. Hey, guys, easy, okay? My birds are crazy. All right, so thank you, TD. Yo, shout out to my boy Ikshak Rabin, a.k.a. Ray Abrams.
That's right.
Yeah, Ray, what's going on with you, brother? How you doing, my man? Good to see you, brother.
Life is good down here in the A, brother. Life is good.
I'm sorry, I had to cover these birds up. You know what I'm saying? My production crew.
I've never got so much applause in my life. I feel like it's actually.
Yeah, listen, they love you, man. They love you, Ray. They love you, Ray.
That was
Ikshak Rabin. We're going to have some fun today. And listen, listen, my sister, my OSG family, man, from down there in North Carolina, out there doing her thing, Dr. D Nice Bojalin. Dr. D Nice, how you feeling, sis? Let me give you flowers. What's up? Another yachty in the building.
I'm coming to you live from Alabama today, though.
Alabama.
You're in Alabama today, Dr. D Nice?
I am. Tomorrow I'm going to be live in studio host for a COVID-19 vaccine educational broadcast that's going to be broadcasted internationally from Oakwood University.
Nice. OSG doing big stuff.
You should see. I went into the studio today. I was just like, wow, I feel like a star. It's like a real studio with lights, and it's amazing. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be fun. Y'all should tune into it.
We definitely going to tune in. We're going to make sure you give that information out, because obviously that's great information that we need to have, and that's something that we need to talk about. So Dr. D Nice,
I have the flyer up on my Instagram page.
Yeah, and then you know what? And text me the flyer so I can share it, so I can let everybody.
Okay,
see it.
I'll send it to you when we're done.
Yeah, so I can share it, and I want everybody to see the flyer. Let's go. Simone Nicholas, what's up? Queen Lioness, we just left the line. Whoa, what a great day. Listen, so now let's talk for a second. We're gonna have some fun today. You're gonna have some fun today. This is the Raw Perspective, the Friday edition. I need to put on I'm taking off my Randy James glasses. And because I got to get down to business today, I got to read some stuff. And you know, that double nickels are approaching. So I want to make sure that I see everything I need to see. You know what I'm saying, Ray?
Yeah.
So today we're going to play a game called Ask the Panel. But before we play the game, I just want to ask y'all, you know, how y'all doing with what's happening with the GOP now? They seem like they eating each other, right, Ray? What's up with that?
Yeah, man. It's a trip. It's a trip. I mean, I can't really explain it. They're just falling apart. There's fear, right? They're acting out of fear that there's going to be a third party. You know, the Tea Party never went away, right? So
right.
The Tea Party is really kind of splintered and become, you know, stronger and change. I guess they've changed their names more militaristic. And so, yeah, this fear, they're going to start a real third party.
You know, this is how I feel. I feel like we've been, as Black people in this country, we've been sort of beat up for so many different years. We've been able to deal with it. It seems like our white friends have now getting a little bit of something where we're saying you can't have everything to yourself. You're going to have to share this country a little bit. And I think they're panicking and going crazy, and that's kind of what causes all of that craziness. Am I right in saying that, Tanya?
Yes, this is the thing. History and life is cyclical. And, you know, I have to just say it as it is. We are all on stolen land. None of this land belongs to us, you know, and there's an entire race of people who were annihilated before, you know, we even all got here, you know, whether it be through slavery or through just immigration.
Right.
And life is a circle. You can't escape that circle. And so things are going to change, whether people are like it or not, it's going to change. And to be quite frank.
Sorry guys. You know why? Because we're breaking into our game today. We're breaking into our game, all right? So we can have some fun. We talk politics in 2 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, now for that popular game show that everybody wants to know about. How does that put money in Black people's pocket? With your host, Uncle, your uncle, the world famous, most dangerous, Uncle Lays.
Now let's go to his panel. His distinguished panel. All the way from Fresh Start Focus. TD Lovin. And of course, his right-hand man with always the plan. They call him Doc. We call him Big Shot Praveen. He goes by the name of Z-Ray Abrams. And we want to welcome him to the show, the newest member, all the way from December. She goes by the name of Dr. D-Nice. Beaujolais. Yeah. Come on. Put your hands together.
What do you like about that? You see that? You see that? We got production value. Did that shock y'all? Did I come
You've waited a long time to do that, ladies.
I've been waiting. You know I've been waiting a long time. I wanted to shock y'all a second with something. You know, the production value. You like that, CT? And D-Nice is like, what happened? Dr. D said, what happened? But the name of the game we're playing, we're going to play a game. This is a game we're going to play. The game we're going to play is called, How Does That Make Black People Money? All right, that's the name. So everything we talk about, because we've been talking about so many things. So I'm going back to my man, Easy Breezy. And he brings everything down to money. He's like, how does that make Black people money? And we've been talking, we've been complaining, we've been saying this is what's been happening. We've been theorizing what's happening. But the question of the game is, how does that make Black people money? That's what we want to know. I'm gonna start asking y'all some questions, okay?
All right, bring it on.
Lay it on. All right. I'm gonna go to you, Dr. D-Nice, since you're the since you're new to the crew.
Okay.
BLM, how does that make Black people money?
I think, well, it's all about value. And I feel that it's sort of brought Black voices, made it louder in this particular generation or this particular time in Earth's history. Kind of, if we think of the civil rights movement, that was a time where our voices were loud. And then it kind of quiet down. I won't say totally quiet, but it quiet down. And this is not another opportunity where Black voices are louder. And, you know, unfortunately, the way politics and economics is, it's the people that are being heard and being seen that really get a say in most things. So it's just kind of given us attention.
So the answer to the question is, you know, the attention is how we're going to get some money from the attention. How was that basically, when I say giving Black people money, how was that going to give us that financial grip, that standing, that equity in this country? I'm going to go to Ray Abrams real quick. And I'm bringing that question because even though I made a funny little tune to get in here, but this is a serious question. We're out there, we're fighting these wars. We're having hundreds of hours, every 24 hours out of the day, you can count 20 to 25, 24 hours of African-Americans reaching out, screaming out, talking the point of inequity and disenfranchised, you know, with disenfranchised African-Americans in this country. The question is, what does any of this stuff do? How are we going to make money off it? That's the question.
Well, I think you have to have two approaches, you know, bicameral approach. You know, any war, you have to have multiple beachheads. Where, you know, if you try to go just at one area, one target, you get squashed down, particularly when you don't have the numbers. I mean, this is Sun Tzu, Art of War, talks about, you know, you have to use different approaches. You know, if the enemy is stronger than you, you have to, you know, you have to figure things out. And so by having Black Lives Matter, but you also have, you know, folks who are negotiating. You have the Ta-Nehisi Coates, you have the Congressional Black Caucus. So you're coming at the problem from different angles, and that's the really only way you can.
Has the Congressional Black Caucus been effective in the African American community?
No.
Tanya, you take that.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, Ray. I know what you were going to say. I already know what you were going to say.
No, let Ray say what he wants to say. okay.
That was it. I had a simple one-word answer. It was just no. It was
Yeah, I knew he was just going to say no. So I knew Ray was going to say no already. That's why I'm giving it to you, Tanya, because you would be a little more, you would explain why.
I think that I think that the Black Caucus has not been effective because they're using it's sort of like the reason that it was created in the first place has to evolve. We're not in the 1960s or the 70s anymore. And so the organization, I think, still operates as if we were back in those times. And I think like Ray, they are not effective because they don't have any new, fresh ideas and strategies to advance the Black movement. I just think they're stuck in the same thing that we've been doing over and over again. And clearly it's not working because we haven't progressed very much in education, in finance, in health, in all the areas that affect Black people. We are still very, very far behind. Why? And why isn't an organization like that, who has resources and connections, able to push us further? It's nice to have the little party, because Black Caucus, they love to have their parties. No offense against parties, but hey, it's not about being partying and looking cute and taking photo ops. It's about actually getting stuff done. But until
in a sense, I'm going to give it to you, brass tacks. The Black Caucus in the United States government, are you saying it's not making any progress? It's feckless? Is that what we're saying?
I didn't say they aren't making any progress, but they're not making much progress because they're going by an old blueprint that doesn't work anymore. We are in 2021 with a 1965 model. Something has to change because not much has changed.
I got you on that. Dr.
Lays,
D. Nice.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
I was
D.
going to ask, when you asked me about the Black Lives Matter movement, I've kind of struggled with that a little bit, just because
I know you did. That's why I jumped off you.
Huh?
I know you did. That's why I jumped away from you, because I knew that you were fighting with it.
Is because from when I read their mission statement, it's not. From what my understanding, it's not necessarily an economical movement. I mean, maybe economy, maybe some after effect, but I don't think economy is one of the main precepts for why it was started.
And the premise of the question is, how does that put money in Black people's pocket? That's the premise of that question is, how does any of this put money in Black people's pocket? That's what I'm saying to you.
Well, can I just say something about the BLM movement?
Yeah.
The BLM movement spread throughout the world, Europe, Africa, the United States, all over the world. People were protesting with the Black Lives Matter mantra and movement. Now, the organization itself, did that put money in Black people's pocket? No, it put money in that organization's pocket. Now, it's left to see what's going to happen with the money that they've received, because I know they've got some good financial backing. But what
you mean George Soros gave them millions and millions of dollars? Is that what you're saying?
But what it did do, what I will say it did do, it highlighted issues that were affecting Black people. And I know this from friends who are entrepreneurs, not only here in Charlotte, North Carolina, but across the country. White people began to see that there was an inequity in economic advancement for Black people, and were literally seeking out Black entrepreneurs for services. White folks were like, listen, I want to get an interior designer. Do you know a Black one? I need to get, a carpenter. Do you know a Black one? I need to get this done. Do you know? It started a movement amongst our white counterparts and friends to seek out opportunities to patronize our businesses. That I know for a fact has happened, because I know people it's happened too. And so I think what it did do, the movement itself may not have put money in Black people's pocket, but the awareness that there were these inequities became very apparent to more white people than ever before. And instead of shying away, saying, you know what, let me do something, let me patronize.
Are we really, hold on, TD, you know, I love you, sister, but are we really willing to say that white people in this country that do not understand the inequities or the disenfranchisement of African Americans in this country? Are we willing to actually say that?
I think that I honestly, I think, and I know this sounds crazy, but I think that many white people see the few Blacks that make it and think, oh, everyone's, you know, look at Michael Jordan, look at Oprah, look at P. Diddy, look at Beyonce, and
Okay.
literally.
So I'm going to go to Ray real quick. But before I go to you, Ray, I want to just give a shout out to my boo. Shout out to Coach Fia Davis. Shout out to Berta Teasley. Sakina Pitts is in the house. Sakina Pitts says, I think from an overall awareness happens globally from the movement collective voice. Many people began putting their money in Black banks, using Black businesses. Mackenzie Scott gave millions to HBCUs.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Ray,
Yeah.
come on. I mean, what she's saying is that how does that help us gain equity? How does that put money in Black people's pockets?
Well, it raised. I think Tanya's right to an extent where, you know, there are white people who just really didn't know. You got to think about what their experience.
Really?
Yeah, because people don't travel, right? Like because you've traveled, you know, you have hands-on. You've been to Senegal. You know, you've been to hoods around the world. You understand how people in other countries live and what they deal with. You've met people who don't have clean drinking water, right? Which just isn't the experience of most people. So we kind of hear about it. You know,
it was in Flint, Michigan, by the way.
Right, exactly. Well, except for Flint. I mean, obviously there are areas in the city, but even our worst of the worst cities are nowhere near what people deal with around the world. And so while we hear about it on the news, I mean, there's no way you can say you didn't know there were 4 people in the world. You don't, because you've never met them. You've never went to their house. You have no real understanding of how bad people are living out there. And so you kind of stand in your own community. If I could have 1 minute, you know, I actually had an epiphany on what racism is. And it's kind of like Americanism to that point where, you know, where we're born here, right? We're born here. We got this right. We hit the lottery being born in America, right? Where people in the world, you know, most people, half the people in the world live on $1 a day. And while we in America say, you know, that's terrible, that's a horrible thing. But what if somebody said, listen, everybody in America, we're going to take all the money out of your bank account and you're going to have to live on $5 a day. But we're going to make sure everybody in the world got something to eat. We would fight like hell, Black, white, Asian, everybody, right? Because we were born here and we deserve this. And that's what racism is.
So you're saying we're spoiled?
We're spoiled, just like white people are spoiled. And while they feel bad for the Black plight. They feel bad. But they don't
Mr. Uncle Lace from the Raw Perspective. Shout out to my OSG family. Shout out to my MOP First family. Ray Abram, Ikshak Rabin says African Americans in America are spoiled. Are you comfortable with taking that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we're spoiled compared to the rest of the world.
Compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah, compared to the rest of the world. I mean, we you know.
That's a very heavy weighted statement, Ray Abram.
Yeah, it is. But I'm just saying that, you know, I understand. It helped me understand racism when I understood how I feel as a Black man in America. I still, when I travel, you know, when I go, I drive through areas where people would love to live in our worst neighborhoods, right? And, you know, because like I said, we take water for granted. We flush our clean water down the toilet. When there's 8 million people in one, you know, in the world, or maybe more than that, at least 8 million people who don't have access to clean water. People have to walk 6 miles to get a glass of water, right? And so we take that for granted. In our worst neighborhoods, we can turn on a spigot and get water.
So what you're saying is the most oppressed person in the United States is living better than 80-90% of the rest of the planet. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Right. That's what I'm saying. Now, does that mean that we can't want more? No. But what it means is it helped me understand racism. When you look at the world through that lens, right, you understand why white people are spoiled, right? Because they're used to things working out for them. They're used to just having an advantage. They are used to the world working in their favor. And so when someone comes and says, we're going to take that away, we want to make this equal, we want to make this, equitable for everybody, but you're going to have to sacrifice some of your privileges, that white privilege that you enjoy. You have to give up some of that. They're like, well, no, I was born white, I deserve this. And so that when you look at it through that lens, for me, it helped understand what we have to do to get through it.
Dr. D. Nice. Dr. D. Nice, do you think that we're spoiled?
I was born in Jamaica, and I will say, for example, the elementary school I went to in Jamaica, White Marl All-Age School, my aunt taught there, and that's why I ended up going to school there. It was on top of a hill, and just below the hill was, let's just call it a village of people that with little houses
Bauxite roof
on the side of the hill.
Zinc roof.
Their roof was just a sheet of zinc.
Mm-hmm.
Their walls, some were cardboard, some were just scraps of wood. And this is where the kids came up the hill to go to school. Sometimes they would actually be at school washing children's hair. Basic things like that the teachers were doing.
When you don't have no shoes, you put Vaseline on your feet and you walk barefoot. Is that what you said?
Just basic things like that. Even in, I guess homeless people, they live in cardboard boxes. That's about the equivalent we can have here, but that is not a whole village of children, mother, father, scattered all across the country in different ghettos. So it's a different type of poverty. It really is. And until you've traveled and seen that, you just don't really understand it. And, but I will back up and say though, that I don't really think it's necessarily fair to compare the two.
The relativity of it.
Because we're in America. This is we're measuring things by how the standard white picket fence, 2 cars, a dog, and whatever else you're supposed to have. So that's the standard. So
that takes me to another place here, because, and I'm going to take this to Tanya, and because what it sounds like Ray is saying, and what it sounds like Dr. D. Nice is attesting to, is that saying, hey, your life is better than the rest of the world, so why are you beefing about it not being as good as the white people in this country? TD, can you take that position? Like, can you understand? That's what I'm getting. Listen, Ray, you may not be saying that, but that's what it sounds like you're saying.
Well, I have to say, Ray, okay. That's not what I was saying, though. What I was saying, I was actually saying that the poverty is different. Yes, that's across the board. The poverty is different. But when we compare it to the American lifestyle, the poor in America are poor. They're not living anywhere close to the lifestyle that's attainable as the standard American lifestyle. What's marketed, the apple pie and apple picket fence and those things. In a country this wealthy, we should not have people that are living that poorly. We should not have children that are going to school, going to bed without food. We should not have parents that are struggling to find a job to feed their family. That should not be happening in America. And I'm not asking for a socialized society, but in a country that is the land of opportunity, where are the opportunities for people that are suffering and struggling?
That is a great question. And let me just, before I give it to Tanya, because I know she's chomping at the bit, but let me just say this. Is it right for this country, even though because this is one of the richest countries on the planet and they have such a high lifestyle in comparison to the other countries, is it right to give people of color less or to disenfranchise them? And always, when it comes to school funding, when it comes to just funding in general, when it comes to fixing the roads, they spend more money in affluent communities to fix the road than they do to fix the road in the ghetto. All the things that you can give to a country, just the basic civil, the police, you get the better police in the better neighborhoods. You get all of these things. Are you saying that is it okay because we're better than Ukraine that we should get less? Is that what we're saying, Tanya?
And I just want to say it real quick, just so I can be clear, because I want to make sure I'm not misunderstood. What I'm saying, when I made that example was not that, being poor in America is okay. What I'm saying is if someone told you as a Black man in America that you have to give up 80% of your income, or you have to sacrifice your lifestyle so that all Black people could live well, would you do that, right? So the challenge is, I understand why white people are holding on. Right, I understand why white people are holding on so tight to their privilege, because they were born privileged, and that's what I mean by Americans. We were born privileged, and we would be damned if we gave up our privilege that we just got. Just because you're born in these borders, you are privileged amongst the rest of the world. So that's what I'm trying to say. Not that anything is right or wrong, but just as an example of why racism exists. People were born with this privilege. Now they feel it's being taken away. That's
Tanya, this thing just got hot. This thing, I mean, Ray just opened up a can of worms in this conversation. This is your boy Uncle Lace in the Raw Perspective. Shout out to my OSG family. Shout out to my MOP family. We have to take that pause and shout out Toby Hicks. Toby's here. Sakina Pitts is what happened from the movement. Sakina agrees with you, Tana. Sakina Pitts is a principal in Newark, New Jersey. She's in the struggle. She's shown her life. We're dealing with people in oppressed. Newark, New Jersey is one of the most oppressed cities. Gentrification is real. They are trying to drive down the real estate so they can buy it up and gentrify it like they did in Brooklyn. She is in the fight, Sakina Pitts. TD, you heard Ray, you heard Dr. D Nice. I need your take on this.
This is a very complex topic, because if you're looking at like Dr. D Nice said, if you're looking at what is attainable in the United States of America, Black people are very far, far, far behind. And we need improvements to have equity, to have some sense of equality. Lots of things have to change, lots of things. Education should be primarily number one, but that's in my opinion. And when I say that to say, so Dr. D Nice, like myself, born in Jamaica, raised in the Bronx, I had cousins who couldn't go to school at some point in the education. I think elementary is free, but you got to pay for high school or pay some kind of money. And we had to literally send money back to Jamaica, my family members, to send some of my cousins to school, or else guess what? They weren't going. You don't have money, you don't get to go to school. You get to go to school free in this country. Free education from K to 12th grade. That is unheard of in many places around the world. I know Jamaica, for one, is one of them.
I'm gonna put before you finish that statement, I'm gonna put the Zoom link in there if any educators want to come in. I see Sakina Pitts there.
Yes.
Come on in.
And what I say to that, and why I say that as a former educator myself, is that we have to do something. The fact that we can go to school for free, but yet still in our urban, because I've taught in some of the roughest places in New York, in Brooklyn and in the Bronx and in Manhattan. I taught in some rough schools, and I want to tell you, there is no reason with the amount of money that we have in the United States that the education that should be provided for students across the board, not just our Black students and brown students in the urban communities, even those kids in the rural communities that are not getting the education that they need, and that can be provided. But it's a plan. who's going to be the underclass? If we educate everybody well, then who's going to want to do the underclass work? That is the real deal, because we have enough money to get the proper education from everybody, for everybody. But the United States of America is not going to do that. So guess what? We have to demand it. And I said it before, we march as Black people, we march for a whole lot of things. I have not seen one march put together for the inequity in education for students of color across this country. So when they decide to have a march, BLM or somebody has a march for education, I will be there on the front line with my sign.
Okay, so I'm going to give my editorial
Tanya. I will be.
I'm going to give before I go over to Dr. D Nice, because I know she has something to say on the subject. I'm going to give my editorial. There is no way in this country that they will purposely equalize the educational space for African Americans and the mass white majority in this country. Unfortunately, what's going to have to probably happen is that we're going to have to creatively find ways to educate our children in our community, because there is a constant fear that the African American child, the descendants of enslaved Africans, will in some way become educated and franchise themselves and be more powerful. And because we're able to deal with this, remember, look at what happened. We had years and years of disenfranchised African Americans in this country, and then finally we have 4 years of a guy telling white middle-class white people that somebody's taking something away from them, and then they stormed the Capitol. You know, if anybody needed to storm the Capitol, it should have been a whole bunch of other people that should have stormed the Capitol. There's a lot of reasons why African Americans should have stormed the Capitol. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, when they even had the marches at the Capitol, they sent the National Guard because they said, listen, they really have a right to storm the Capitol. But the thing is here now, because they're saying that we may be taken away or even coming on par with the white Americans in this country, they said, listen, we may be losing our edge, so we're going to storm the Capitol. We're going to storm.
Well, let me tell you a very interesting thing. In North Carolina here, they have whole Indian communities that come in, take over public schools, charter schools, and demand what's going to be taught to their kids right here in America. Indian Americans from India across.
You say East Indian.
Indians come here to this country, take over schools. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. Demand, this is what we're going to have taught in our schools. This is what, and I'm sitting here like, why aren't we as Black people who are native to this country, to this land, not these people who just came over, as immigrants? No, we need to be doing the same things. The Jews put a demand, right? They have their schools, they get whatever funding they need from the government. We need to do the same thing. I'm sure the Black Panther Party was trying to do something like that before everything got, decimated, but we need to go back to that. We have to put it has to become a priority for us. Education.
Simone Nicholas says she demands what's going to be taught. Shout out to Raven Askew. Welcome to the room. Simone Nicholas said, who was living their wildest dreams, enslaved Africans. She is a descendant and she demands what's going to be taught to my children. Well, that brings up another point, Dr. D. Nice Beaujolais, when we talk about even just the limited amount of African American doctors in this country in comparison to the Indian doctors and the all the other different races that are doctors. The actual African American doctors is a very small amount. It's almost ridiculous when you go and see in medical schools, you'll see just a huge amount of Indians and even Jamaicans and people from different parts of the world, and you see a very small amount of African American kids who are doctors in this world. Is that true? What I'm saying, Dr. D. Nice?
I mean, yes, there definitely is a representation in medicine. We've seen that kind of come up here with the coronavirus. How can you all hear me?
Yeah, I got you. You're good.
Hello.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Okay. You got Dame Dash's Wi-Fi. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
You know what? I'm gonna move to maybe to a different part of this little house where I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm just.
By the way, you're doing a speech tomorrow. Where you doing a seminar tomorrow?
It's at Oakwood University.
Yeah.
It's in the studio. It's not a speech. It's a whole hour-long broadcast with different guest providers, guest doctors from all over the world and the country.
Yeah.
Educating about the vaccine.
Okay.
Yeah. So in medicine, we've seen the inequality. It rose to the surface right now during the coronavirus. A lot of light was shed on the whole medical care system, both as providers and as patient care. But I will say, though, there's always been an effort, it's been recognized over the years about this inequality in medicine. And I myself even got into medical school on a program that was trying to improve or increase the amount of minorities in medical school. There are a lot of medical schools that have programs where they recruit young physicians. They understand that Blacks, for whatever reason, or we tend not, our preparation, there's a whole different reasons why we tend not to do as well as on standardized examinations. So myself, I didn't do well on the MCAT, but this program that I got into medical school through, I actually had to do a year of graduate level science classes at University of Houston. And I had to keep a certain grade point average. I had to get a B or an above in all those classes. And that would give me an automatic acceptance into medical school, because I always did well in the classroom, and standardized exams I didn't do well on. So there are a lot of these programs scattered around the US that are really trying to increase the minorities in medical school.
Dr. DeNice, and let me just say this. Could it be said that some of the standardized tests are not geared for African Americans in this country?
Of course it could be said. It's not part of it's not, what I realized over the years is standardized test is a skill. It's not a test in knowledge. It's a test in test taking. It's a skill in test taking. And until you learn that skill on how to take tests, for example, if you ask me a question, I can answer you verbally and tell you it. But to give me 4 choices and to pick it out from pros and and I myself, I'm not a fast reader. I'm an efficient reader. If I read it once and understand it well, I don't have to read it again, but I can't read fast, So there's those little factors are not factored in to standardized testing. And because as a community, I don't know why, but we don't put a lot of effort into training our youth how to take these tests. I have my neighbor around the street from my house, her kids, from the time they hit middle school, they're practicing LSAT and ACT. Right. It's just a part of their culture. It's not a part of our Black culture to train our kids how to take these tests and be successful on them, because it truly is not a test of knowledge. It's a test on test taking.
That's a very slippery slope that we're standing on right now, because
it's slippery. Let's slide on down it though.
Yeah, we're going to slide down that slope, because basically what Ray is saying, and basically what you're saying, is that we African Americans do not prepare their children to be competitive in the world en masse. I'm not saying there are some families that do that. And maybe as time progresses with groups like OSG, and, when we start to have this discussion about things that we need to do for our community, and this is why we're having this open discussion, because I think what we're saying is that historically we have not prepared our children. And every time one gets out and becomes successful, it's almost like, oh my God, you're a superhero. I was just on with Dr. Monica on the Lions Den a few minutes ago, and she's such an incredible doctor, and she does so many great things. She's basically setting the tone for education in this country, and affected so many different people.
Well, I can tell you this, Blaze.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah,
I can say this, that before the civil rights movement happened and we had integration where we had to go to schools with only our own, we put in tremendous amounts of effort to educate our children. Once we integrated and teachers who were didn't look like us, didn't have the same investment in us as our Black teachers. You know, when you go to all Black school, the teachers, especially in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, they knew education was something that was kept from us as a people in this country. So therefore, education was paramount for Black people prior to integration. When integration happened and you had white teachers coming into the Black community or Black kids going into the white communities, in some cases, some Black kids got, I guess, better education, but the investment in the Black student itself is not there. I was a teacher for 10 years in the New York City school system. And I can tell you,
this is the Friday edition.
There's some things that I saw and some teachers that were not of the race of the population of students, and some of them just didn't care. They just did not care about the education of the students that they were teaching. And that's just a fact. I saw it with my own eyes. I sat in teachers' lunchrooms, conversations. I'm like, this is really, really crazy. And so we as Black people, we have to be concerned. And like a OSG, thank God for a OSG. We as Black people have to be concerned collectively about the education of our children. And we cannot sit back and wait for white America to do that for us, because they are not interested in having us being educated, because that means there's competition. That means that this underclass can become a middle class and then can become an upper class. You're on mute. Lays, we can't hear you.
I was giving the applause because because I love what you said. And also my OSG Lioness, my co-defendant from the Lion's Den, is in the building today. First of all, let me just say, congratulations on an amazing night with Dr. Monica. I thought that was amazing what we did earlier today.
Oh, thank you. Yes, another shout out to Dr. Monica George Fields. And, you know, I just always look forward to the magic that we make happen on Third Fridays. So tonight was another successful night. Thank you, Unc.
So as a person who has got boots on the ground,
yes,
you got boots on the ground. You hear all this conversation. You hear Ray talks about how, Ray put it very bluntly. He's saying, listen, we are spoiled a little bit. And, I understand how he said it. Dr. Denise gives her position, and Tanya as a former educator and also a mom. But how is that? What can we do, sis? After all of that, what do you have to add to this? Because you have boots on the ground. You know what's going on.
Yes, and I think I live within each of their lives where my family are Caribbean immigrants. I was at one point, even though it was 25 years ago, a teacher who is now an administrator. I was a single mother. And I hear the commentary that is being said about the opportunities of access for African-American families and preparation for testing and et cetera. However, I would just like to respectfully provide another perspective, because this is the raw perspective, right?
Be my guest. Yes, please.
So because I kind of am interrelated with every life that's on the panel, I would have to respectfully say that it is not that we just don't prepare our kids for testing. I think the onion peel has several layers. We can go back to the history of the GI Bill and how that was intentionally keeping out people of color as well as Jews. So therefore, once the GI Bill was made for people who came back from World War II, which then gave white families access to areas such as Long Island, such as Westchester, such as any place where they can go and literally only pay what is known today as probably $5,000. Back then it was $800 for a 3-bedroom home.
Wow.
That then created opportunities that
no interest loans too, by the way, no interest.
Right. So therefore, once you have a home, once you're a homeowner, that avails you to have access, because now I can send my child to school on access. Now I have some kind of collateral to which I can have a different kind of lifestyle. I can then afford to pay for small groups, because the only difference between the children who live out here, because I'm from Brooklyn, but you know that I now live in Long Island, the only difference is that I've seen people who have a different category of money be able to pay for small group instruction. So we have the Catapult Learnings, we have the Kumans, we have, you know, the Light Bridge. We have all of those places that are accessible for people with money, because that's what we know and that's its particular culture. But being raised by people who sacrifice everything, my grandmother, my mother, we didn't have money for me to, you know, to go to small group instruction, but it wasn't that it wasn't important. It was absolutely built into my culture. It was absolutely built into those people who were friends of mine whose family had migrated from the South. The difference, again, as I'm saying, and Ms. Tanya had already touched on it, there were absolute groups such as, you know, where my parents met, which was the Black Panther Party, who had organized and structured programs for our children to win, right? But unfortunately, there were systems, intentional systems, such as, you know, 3 letters that exist at, you know, the federal building that intentionally infiltrated groups such as that, so that we would not get ahead. So again, we have opportunity, but because all we could do was work hard, because we were redlined into certain communities, because we were not provided access. The one thing is to have education, is another thing to have home ownership. And they leave traces of financial literacy and home ownership generationally to their children, so that they can have this type of culture. But when you're coming and all you know is survival and who's gonna watch my kid?
Now, how you gonna live? How you gonna pay your rent?
Right. What becomes important is the school building, the school leader, because now the school represents all that is and all the promise that should be for the children. And that's where I come in, because I am not gonna let any one of my students think that they're gonna be in my building and not thrive. They don't have to survive. They're gonna thrive because I absolutely speak and understand their language. I have been through, you know, similar struggles. I understand what is absolutely needed, and I have a voice to which I can be a connector to those small groups and say, hey, you over there, yes, I know you're writing checks in communities that clearly, not that they don't need help, all children need help, but they're writing checks because, again, there's a kickback. They know that they're gonna make tenfold, but here, write that other check over here, and I'm gonna get this legislator and that president and that chancellor in order to ensure that my children thrive because I speak that language. The issue is not that we don't want that. The issue is we don't know about it. And so you can't blame people for not knowing what they don't know. However, you can blame intentional policies that were created to hold us back, such as the GI Bill of 1950, where we were not allowed to have any kind of home ownership outside of the 5 boroughs.
And home, as we know, home ownership is wealth building. And if you cannot build wealth, then you're out here complaining and living in places like NYCHA. And now you're owning blocks that your mama rent on, as Jay-Z said in 444. You're saluting blocks that your mama rent on. Ray Abram.
That's right.
So with what the great Queen Lioness said, based on that conversation, do you still believe that we are spoiled as African Americans?
No, I never said there was spoilers.
Yes, I said.
Different way. So this is my point.
I'm just giving it to you how it's being read out. So I know what you said, but I'm giving it to you how it's being read out. Okay. I'm giving you a chance to clarify. Okay.
All right. So I think to Sister Nicola's point, reparations are in order, right? The federal government definitely put policies in place, and still there are policies in place that keep us there. The redlining, a lot of that stuff is still in place. None of that has been completely addressed or redressed. And until we figure out a way to economically, and I know there are some folks who think that that reparations is a non-starter, but I think it's the only starter, that we have to have some way to level the playing field. But it's a large amount, right? It's a large number. When you think about just say a million,
$14 trillion is what they said.
Right, and I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. The government can print money, just like we saw them do it in this pandemic. I mean, I think Joe Biden just said, okay, we need $4 trillion, print it up. They can create money whenever our money, what we call paper money, isn't based on anything. It's not based on gold. It's based on the idea of America being able to produce, right? And if you can allow this group of people, everybody agrees that Black people were done wrong, right? Everybody agreed. There's no doubt about it that would then. But the question is, do we need to be redressed? And I think the answer is yes. We need reparations in order to level the playing field. But along with that, we need education. And I think that's where what you guys are doing with OSG is so great, because there has to be a conversation that keeps us from blowing the money. That's a concern. I think we even have that in our own community, right? What happens if Ray gets a $50,000 check, right? It's like Adam Smith said, if you give everybody the same amount of money, within a few years, 80% of the people are going to have all the money again, right? It's just the way it is. So there has to be that financial literacy, that financial education that goes along with and is part of the redress of the governmental plan to keep Black people as a—
Dr. D. Nice, is reparations the answer?
I am going to say an unpopular opinion and say no. And I'm going to say no because all I can think about is the words of the Honorable Robert Nesta Marley that says, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. I really feel that, and I don't want to even sound like I'm victim blaming, this problem is so complex. And I think the complexity lies in that there's so many things that have penetrated our minds as Black people as a whole. It has hijacked our perspective on thinking. When I think about our Black community as a whole, when you have, like Ray was saying, you give people this money and then they're going to just take it and blow it. I won't say everybody, but do they have the economical knowledge and how to really manage that money to make it grow for them? And when I think about our communities now, even the little bit that we do have, how unfortunately, and I'm speaking broadly,
yes,
we're not managing it well because of the mental things that have
Let me
been
help
oppressed
you,
upon
Dr.
us.
Dinesh. I understand what you're saying. You're making, but before I go to Tanya, because I know Tanya's ready to go. But Tanya, and then I'm going to go back to Sister Simone because listen, let me just say this. April Leon says family structure. Having to hide a man in a house if you're on welfare, that was a policy. Further destruction of the family unit and the place of a man, Willie Lynchism. What she's basically saying is that there was a systematic, there was a government policy in place to destroy the Black family. So Absolutely. It's hard to create wealth if you don't have the family structure.
Right.
They've destroyed the Black family. Now we're trying to repair We're trying to educate, repair. In other words, we're trying to fly a plane while we're fixing it.
It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot.
So there's not simple answers, but TD, I know you, I know you're ready to go. Go ahead, TD. Go ahead, just speak to all of this.
Well, a couple of things, because I know this from, other situations I've observed, like you have a grandfather or grandmother, they get this insurance policy and they leave it to Pookie and Ray Ray, who have no education, and say Pookie and Ray Ray get $100,000, $200,000, where they could have say, okay, we're going to buy property and reinvest. They blow it on a car or some clothes or something. I mean, that money can go very fast.
Yeah.
But because they don't have the education, why I stress education is so valuable for us as a people, that if you don't have the education and you give the people the money, it's not going to generate anything anyway. And guess what?
Financial literacy, you're saying.
We have 14, Black people in America generate $14 trillion in spending money, right?
Right.
So we currently have $14 trillion and are behind the 8 ball. So what makes it like, okay, we get the reparations and we are going to spend the money to appear, some people will use it to appear wealthy. Some people will do the right thing, but I don't think that we have a strong economic, we don't have a strong economic IQ as Black people with valid reason, because if we have $14 trillion right now in spending power, why aren't we maximizing this $14 trillion? Why? Because we don't have the education. We don't know what to do with the $14 trillion.
So because
Thank you for stating what I was saying in a more succinct manner.
This is a slippery, tough conversation. But because our sister, the Queen Lioness, I'm going to give Queen Lioness the final word, because I think she's going to close us out properly.
So the question you asked, Unc, is, should we get reparations?
Yeah.
I'm going to quote you and the infamous MOP.
There you go.
Annie up.
Annie up. That's right.
Annie up.
Pay what you owe.
Listen, all of us here,
Pay what you owe.
you telling me that if somebody offered you $5, you're not going to take the $5?
Right.
You're going to say, no, it's not going to help?
No. Lioness, Miss Lioness.
Like, hold up now. Listen, I need clarity. Are we really saying?
Okay, so let me make myself clear. I am not saying that we should not get reparations. We absolutely need to get reparations, but we also need to combine it with education so that we benefit from the reparations that we receive.
So you're saying we need land. We need land. That's what you're saying.
Reparations. The Japanese got reparations. All these other groups that had things done against them received reparations. This is why it's not going to end. I'm telling you this, until we get reparations, until we get what we deserve, this country will always have a block. It's never going to go away unless it's resolved. You cannot just because you sweep it under the carpet doesn't mean it's going away. It's going to be right underneath that carpet. So we do need reparations, but I think as Black people, we need to become more educated economically so that when we do get the money, that we can use it productively. That's all I'm saying. But we don't.
Wait a minute. This is such a crazy conversation. Guess who entered the building? My OSG sister, April Leon, is in the building. Let's go.
We're about to get on and popping. So let me just say this. Any group of people that received any type of financial kickback due to loss absolutely had a plan in place. Right. They didn't just get a direct deposit because it was tax time, it was April 15th, and it was like bang, bang. That's not how it happened, right? There was
a stimulus
structure in place in order to ensure that, okay, the $5 is coming. Now, who is going to be in charge of how we set up this system and this policy. So part of the structure, yes, is financial literacy. Part of the structure is, yes, ensuring that we have culturally sensitive and relevant pedagogues in front of our Black and brown children. Part of the system and structure is, yes, let's understand about FICO scores and how important that is. And let's have our own banks and pour money into 401ks and understanding everything that is needed financially, right? However, let's be clear.
Yes.
We have to have the narrative that dictates and sit on the board in order to create the structure, or else we're going to end up with only $5 rather than $5 million. So yes, we need the financial literacy. Yes, we have to understand the dynamics and the science of education and teaching, but that does not, we can't stop there. We also have to talk about family dynamics, right? We also have to discuss how even interrelated cultures exist, because as I mentioned, I'm a Christian, Black, heterosexual American woman who is a descendant of enslaved Africans, and that's a lot of layers to unpack. So we have to talk about mental supports. We have to talk about family supports. We have to talk about financial literacy, but there has to be who's in charge, who's that? It could be OSG, but hell, hey, we can put OSG in there. As far as
reparations means also repairing a community.
Right. So repair, but those repairing, what does that look like for, because again, we're only 13% of the population.
Right.
So that's another piece that people are forgetting. That, you know, some children and some families unfortunately have never been exposed to life outside of that those immediate square footage of the area from where they live. So when it comes down to that, prior to the education and prior to the financial literacy and prior to everything that is needed, you know, so that we know what to do when the money comes the system, policy, and structure. And my concern is who is going to create the system, policy, and structure, because all skin folk ain't kinfolk. That's what I'm thinking about. Who wants to be wise enough to make sure, like, you can't roll up in here and just tell the lioness any old thing, because you know that ain't never gonna happen, right? So who's in charge of that? But you know, I could talk about this for a while, but
listen, let me say this to you, Mr. Lioness. The real estate, the property values have went up exponentially. Tanya Ray Abrams, Dr. D Nice, Sister Moan the Lioness, my sister, and now, for the first time, on the Raw Perspective, my OSG sister, right out of Coney Island, Sister April Leon, Principal April Leon. Listen, when I talk about boots on the ground, you and Sister Lioness are literally, I mean, listen, when I'm going to war, I want y'all with me. I know y'all gonna bust y'all gun. So you've been listening to this, Sister April. Welcome to the Raw Perspective. It's been a long time coming. Tell me, sister, what do you have to say about all this beautiful conversation we're having today?
Well, I know I came in late and
I'm extending it because you came in.
But Sister Simone, we are only 13% because we are not using that 1%, one drop of blood rule that was used against us for us. Right? We have allowed the system to further separate who we are by design. Out of slavery, we then fought for what was at the bottom of the barrel, people immigrating here, fighting for that American dream, the American dream that descendants of slaves never understood because we were not meant to understand that. You cannot talk about financial literacy and just reparations without knowledge of self. There has to be a different kind of education where there's a true knowledge of self and there's an uncovering of all of the lies and deceit that has torn us apart. Because Sankofa, you cannot move forward unless you understand what you've been through. You cannot go forward without going back. And we cannot keep choosing the pieces that we want to choose and think that that's going to make us whole. You cannot get a whole without every piece together. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You need them all. And Simone, great point, because I was going to go there. When we're talking about reparations and when we're talking about financial literacy and when we're talking about education, are we talking about that for all of us? Are we talking about that we believe the Pookies and the Ray Rays that you and I fight so hard for are valued to be at that table? Or the fact that they always have had less and have not been fortunate, is that always going to be what keeps them to being the Pookies and the Ray Rays who are never going to make the best decisions?
I'm gonna pause you right there, Sister April, because I think you just made you made an incredible point, and I want you to pick it up after that. But I want to stop for a second, because what we found in our community, we found that our community has segregated itself to a point where once we make it, we seem to forget about the Pookies and Ray Rays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? Because we tend to want to live with this story. Well, if I made it, then Pookie should have made it. And if Pookie didn't make it and I made it, then something got to be wrong with Pookie.
And this is why I said, Sister April, this is why I said education in our communities, our underserved communities, the education has to become paramount. Whatever we got to do, fight, march, raise money, whatever we need to do, we have to grab hold, because guess what? I grew up in the Bronx. Some of the roughest schools were around me. And it has to start there, because this is the only place in the world that you could have nothing come from the gutter and become something. Anybody in this, that is the American, anybody can be nothing and become something. You could come from the worst of the worst neighborhood and work your butt off and make it in America.
And Sister Tanya, I agree with you, and I disagree with you, because
I was like, I would have to agree to disagree.
I agree and I disagree with you, because Sister Tanya, what I feel like you and I and Simone have in common is that we were blessed with the ability to academically achieve at a different level. We were blessed. There was something about us that we want to say, whether we got lucky or we just were blessed to not struggle in an academic way that allowed us, once we were in a position to, we knew what to do with it. That's not the same for everybody. And I see that within my own siblings who were not as academically blessed, and seeing the difference in their routes and my route within the same household, coming from abuse, crack, so on and so forth. And I would never ever dare to use my story as saying, well, if I could, everybody can. If I can, I could. And
I get exactly what you're saying, April. What I'm trying to say, that statement I made, that's a broad blanket statement. But what I'm saying is that we have to create something that even those, the people you're talking about, the struggle, because I have family members, they struggle. Some kids are, can learn easier than others. Some people have learning disabilities. How can we get everybody to be able, which is difficult?
Well, the question is whether they can learn or not, or whether they're having issues in learning or whatever the case may be, does that not give them the right to the reparations, just as somebody who has, right.
Every person whose family toiled on this soil deserves to get every dime from this reparations. America wouldn't be what it is today if Black people did not build this country, period, end of story. So there is a debt that has to be paid to all people. Now, how we're going to work out all the particulars, that's another piece of the puzzle. That's not the whole puzzle. This is a very complex thing. But do we all deserve reparations? Those people, I got something with the British. Okay, I was born on the island. They owe me some money. Okay, the British, because right now we're fighting for reparations over in the Caribbean too. I was not born here. Now, the people from here, they need to get their money. period.
Well, they said slavery in America was like unlike any slavery
Right,
ever in history.
slavery in America was unlike, and that's why the islands, anybody who's fortunate to come from the islands still has culture that comes from Africa. Carnival, these are all celebrations that if you were here in America, you had no knowledge. So with the reparations, and when we're talking about education, what do we mean about education? Education is not just science, so it's knowledge of self. There has to be an unearthing and uncovering of who we are and what we're made from, because money without power and understanding for self will lead to wasteful spending. There's a psychological science behind why we think we made it through materialistic items. Dr. Francis in the ISIS pages speaks to it very well. There are other people who have through psychology have continued to break us. And we have to match that. But we also have to be clear on this also. It's not just about as easy it is to make money. The more money you print, the less value. The more opportunity, the easier it is for everybody to get the same thing, then the less value is worth.
Right.
Right.
That's
And the
why
reality is this, if everybody who is not doing, if everybody who's doing nothing with their lives right now in Coney Island, and every project in Coney Island got up tomorrow and the Holy Ghost and the Spirit and everything else hit them, and they said, you know what, I'm getting up to get mine. I'm going to go to college. Guess what? There's not a seat for everybody in college. I'm going to get a job.
And everybody can't afford to go to college because the average cost of college is $60,000 a year.
My point is that our capitalistic society would never allow that.
True.
Will never allow that. So we have to speak beyond what appears to be the obvious.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the way this country is set up and capitalism is set up, there has to be people who are willing to be at the bottom.
Well, you know what they say. Capitalism is they stand on the bones that socialist drowns with. So, you know what it is. You know, that's just the reality. And it's a crazy situation. I know we're not going to solve it all, but this is an amazing conversation, guys. And we got to find out a way, because you're right, Tanya. You guys are saying a lot of the same things. You're saying education has to be, financial literacy has to be, and maybe we got to be a little selfish and say we got to take care of our own first.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Let me tell you something.
And it's absolutely psychological, as April said. And Dr. D. Nice, I see that you've been trying to chime in, and I will absolutely yield the floor to you in about 15 seconds. It's so psychological that, you know, Unc, I want to go back to a statement that you mentioned. You said that, you know, it's one thing where we feel like that we've made it and then we forget about the hood. And I would say not necessarily, because if I make it, not me per se, but if a person kind of makes it and then goes back to the hood and with all of their diamonds and their jewelry, what you think is going to happen? They're going to become a victim. Right? So it's really about, if they're at a certain status, is there a certain piece of philanthropy that they know that they can do to support our former neighborhoods? But then that lends itself to, did we teach our children about philanthropy? Did we teach them community service? Did we teach them knowledge of self? Did we teach them about the cycle? Because yes, the system is designed so that there are going to be have-nots, but I feel like it's my rule of thumb and goal that the children and the community, not just the babies, but the community that I serve, is not going to be under the thumb. Yes, Dr. D. Nice.
You know, I'm gonna just sit with, I appreciate all the arguments that have been said, and I'm really gonna still hold strong to my opinion that I do not feel reparations are gonna be the solution for our community. I really feel that we need to focus our attention on really freeing ourselves from the bondage that is on our mind. April alluded to that. Lioness, you alluded to that. Tanya, you alluded to that. And I feel that if we spend a lot of our energies focused on reparation, which is going to be hard to get snatched out of the jaws. Like Ray said before, white America is not going to give this up without a fight. We are better off putting our energy into trying to educate and uplift our community's mental space that we're in. And I really feel, I'm going to say strongly, I don't feel reparations is where we need to be putting our energy in as a community.
Well, I think everybody's got their own opinions on it. The only thing I can say is that when it comes to reparations, it's not just financial reparations, because remember, the government set policies in place in order to just disenfranchise African Americans. Those policies are still in place. So it's not just so much final. It's also about financial. It's also about lifting those policies that are set by the government to disenfranchise African Americans in this country. Those policies are still in place. Real estate policies are still in place. So we have to pay attention to those things. And in my lifetime, those policies were law. You know, it's still law in my lifetime. You know, so you have to understand, it's not about just getting the check. Reparations is also about lifting policies. Like you're trying to run a race and they keep shackling your legs so you can't run, and then yelling at you because you're not running fast enough. There has to be a situation where those policies are lifted so that African Americans can thrive. And that's the problem that we're having.
And D-Nice, and just give them my account number when it comes time for that direct deposit.
Yeah, you don't got to
no,
take
thank you. Just give them. I'll send you my account number, folks. Thank you.
Yeah, listen. First of all, this is an amazing. April, I can't believe you made it on finally, April. Oh my
the
God!
Avenger, otherwise known as the Liberator.
The Liberator.
Yeah.
This your boy Uncle A. Shout to my OSG family. We in here. Shout to my MOP family. Oh my God, this is Friday evening Raw Perspective. We ran a little late and I felt like we've been doing this marathon, me and my lioness queen. Shout to Tanya Hazelhurst Dawkins, my sister TD Love. And tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Fresh Start Focus, we doing it. Dr. D-Nice, she's doing a seminar out in Alabama, wherever she is, she's rocking. Ray Abram, Connect Like a Boss, his book is out on Amazon. The Lioness every third Sunday, the OSG family every week.
Friday, darling, it's all right.
Every third Friday, I'm sorry. And April, the Avenger, Leon, my sister, I love you. Make sure this is not the last time I see you on the Raw Perspective. You know how to get in now. God, this is Michael Lays. I want y'all to have a great evening. These conversations are complicated, they are real, and they're impactful. And join us every Friday because we're going to keep talking about it until we get it right. Have a great evening. God bless y'all. All right? Salute. Thank you, guys. Oh, man.